Welcome to Let's Talk Everything CNA, the podcast where we dive deep into the world of certified nursing assistants, the challenges, and the triumphs that make this profession so extraordinary. We're bringing you the good, the bad, and the ugly, because there's a lot of misinformation out there, and we're here to set the record straight. So if you're ready to be inspired, motivated, educated, and maybe even a little entertained, you're in the right place. We'll give it to you straight up. Buckle up and let's talk about everything CNA.
Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to another session of Let's Talk Everything CNA with Aisling. And today I'm super excited. I have one of our most recent past pupils, Neosha, who's on with us today. And Neosha is going to bring us down through how she ended up becoming a CNA, I think in her early 40s. Which is why I wanted to have her on the show, because that's actually when I went back to become a CNA, was when I was 42. And we want to share to a lot of the potential CNAs, the women out there and the men that feel, oh no, it's all over at 40 or 42, that it's not. It's really just beginning. So, Neosha, can you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about your family, your background, and about your life that you're willing to share with us before you came on into healthcare.
Sure. So my name is Neosha, and I am originally from Chicago, near the Chicago Bulls Stadium. I have two brothers and four sisters. When I was 6 months old, I almost died in a fire. I was in a really bad fire, and I still have the scar to this day. I got married young and gave birth to 8 beautiful, beautiful children from ages 23 to 8. During that time, we homeschooled our children, and I stayed home with them. And during that time, I pursued an associate's degree, and now I'm here.
Wow. So first off, I cannot believe that you have 8 children. That is absolutely an amazing contribution to the world and future healthcare workers, hopefully, that you'll steer some of your children in that direction based upon the conversations that you and I have had. But oh my gosh, you have really dedicated your life to raising your children.
Yes, ma'am. And as I always say, it's
Amazing.
never a dull moment.
No, busy, busy, busy life. All right. So then, Neosha, with such a busy life, raising your kids, as you said, from the age 23 to 8, your kids are today. Why did you decide to come into healthcare? Why did you decide I want to come become a CNA? How did all of that happen? When did those, we'll say, feelings of I want to do something appear for you?
So, honestly, it never left me. Um, I always wanted to be in healthcare, in particular, a nurse. I decided to do it now because my children are older. Technology has changed, presenting many opportunities, flexibility. Also, because it's something I had like put off for the time being, because I wanted to make sure I was completely dedicated to it. And so, early in my life, I was always pregnant or nursing or potty training. And so school schedules required, a lot. And at that time, that's why I decided to do so now.
Unbelievable. So you said that really in all the time that you were raising your family and really dedicating your life to them, supporting them, feeding them, potty training them, doing their homework, right? All of that good stuff. And you even homeschooled. That must have been so challenging. That would be a podcast all by itself one day as well. But you
Yes.
said that you always wanted to come into healthcare. Where do you think those feelings of wanting to help other people, where do you think that began?
So when I was, as far as I can remember, when I was about 10 years old, you know how normally it starts at like kindergarten. What do you want to be when you grow up?
Yeah.
And growing up in my family or in my house, or how I grew up, it seems like I was a watcher. No one, I always seemed like I was like invisible. I seemed like I saw everybody else and no one really stopped and said, hey, you. And so my oldest brother, he asked me, he said, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I told him, I said, I want to be a nurse and a model. And he said, well, modeling is good, because he didn't want to discourage me. He says, but nursing is good too. He said you should try to do that. And so I've always saw people, older people getting helped or people being helped in healthcare,
Yeah.
but I felt like that was something I wanted to do. I wanted to help someone. And when my brother
Yeah.
asked me that, that's when I decided that that's what I wanted to do at about 10 or 11 years old.
I love that you shared that with us, that, you always were looking out for other people, and sometimes you felt that not that people weren't looking out for you, but that you weren't nearly seen, if that makes sense. Do you mind me asking how many brothers and sisters you have, and where you came in that family? Where you fall? Are you the youngest? Are you in the middle?
So I'm just above the baby. So in our house, I lived with my mom. It was me, and then it was my sister. So it was my baby sister, it was me, and then it was my brother, my baby brother, well, the baby brother. Then it was my sister, and then my oldest brother. So I'm next to the baby in my mom's house. The other siblings
Okay.
I have are on my dad's side.
Yeah.
So I was second.
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm just curious, because I hear that a lot with people who are, on the lower end of the family, as in coming from big families, people that are like the second youngest or the youngest, that they felt with having so many brothers and sisters that, you know, they weren't seen. Maybe in the hectivity of raising a big family, I'm not sure. So I appreciate you saying that. And I love that you said that you saw everybody else. So kind of talk to me a little bit about that. What do you mean about that when you say you saw everybody else?
So as a young child, honestly, so the reason why I never felt seen is because I was shy and I never wanted to be seen. I always would sit back and watch everyone else.
Yeah, yeah,
And so I adapted a saying that I tell all of my children. I've been telling them since they were babies. People in our lives are examples of what to do and what not to do. You take the good and leave the bad. And so, as I was watching other people in my family, my extended family, and just around me, those were words that I kind of adapted to as far as life. So, I would just watch people, and I would see my aunt, or I would see my uncle, or I would see my mom, or a teacher, and I took whatever I saw that was good. And I didn't judge them for the bad, and I just kept moving.
right,
And that was the
right,
attitude that
right.
I had.
That is an amazing nugget of wisdom. It really is amazing, and I love that you're using that with your children, right? That you're not judging, but that you're teaching them to surround themselves with positive people, and people who potentially will help them be better versions of themselves, or be in a positive environment. And those, like you said, that you didn't particularly care for their actions or whatever, you just moved around with the people in the positive. So I think that's an amazing piece of information to give your kids. I'm going to use that in the school. Actually, I'm going to use that. I want you to write that down. I'm going to use that line with all of our students. Now let's talk about, you came back to school, right? So you said you were always thinking about coming into healthcare. So when did you kind of say, okay, I'm really serious now? What's the first step, and where did you start?
Okay, so if I start with my first interaction or first encounter of healthcare, it actually started when I was in high school. I went to a vocational high school, or what they call it would be considered like a career academy, or I wouldn't want to call it a trade school, but that's the
Yeah.
type of us. That's the type of school it was. So at my high school, children were coming out of high school with cosmetology license, barbering license, nursing license. Um, they would have automotive technician license. And so when
Yeah.
I got there, they had an option to do the nursing program. I was ecstatic. Unfortunately, so did everyone else want to be nurses. So I
Oh
couldn't get
boy.
into the program. And so I chose pharmacy. I actually found out after, listening to the counselors, they said, well, we have physician assistant. I said, okay, that's interesting. They said, but in order for you to do that, you have to do pharmacy. So I ended up doing pharmacy, getting my pharmacy technician's license. And that was my first like taste of healthcare and pharmacy tech.
How did you like that course? I
I
bet that was hard.
really liked it. Well, I
Yeah.
went there when I was in high school. So I would leave high school. I would go to Malcolm X College. They had what they called a college excel program. And so I loved it. Like I went there, I was like, okay, cool. I want to do this. I thought about being a pharmacist, but again, the children were coming, and I was like, no, I still want to be a nurse.
Yeah, yeah. Isn't it interesting, Neosha? And I preach about this all the time. And I think it's something that people don't really lean into today. Your gut feeling. Your gut feeling is never wrong. And even we've only just begun this podcast, just in really listening to you in your family, the fact that you saw others, you were able to take the good, remove the bad, keep moving forward. You always knew what you wanted. You said you were shy and quiet, but you were very smart because it was almost like you were compiling all of this information all the time. And even though that counselor kind of, I'd say, swayed you into doing something that you didn't want to do, and although you enjoyed it, you were probably too young and too impressionable that you didn't realize, hey, stick with my gut. I should have stuck with my gut, right?
Yes,
Yeah, but
exactly.
that's going to be great, even if you do go on to be a nurse. It's actually going to be great that you did that. And then to do that at 18 is amazing. So I have to applaud you. So, all right. So you did all of that. So the feelings that you just knew, I want to be a nurse, I want to be a nurse, never went away. That niggling, what would we say? Stirring your soul, so to speak, saying, this is the path, this is the path. Call it the spiritual voice, call it whatever you want. You knew that's what you wanted to do. So you decided to come back to school. Did you know that here in Illinois you have to be a CNA first before you become a nurse? Or did you just decide, I'm going to try and be a CNA first and then just graduate? How did that work out?
So it started to really stir in me like, hey, you need to go back to school, see what you need to do to be a nurse. Start your research. And I believe I started the research again about a year ago. No,
Okay.
I'm sorry, almost 2 years ago. But I had a barrier. The barrier was, of course, I exhausted financial aid. I had no way of paying for it. So as I was looking at the different schools for nursing, I noticed that most of them, like you said, you had to be a CNA. I said, well, I would rather be a CNA first because how do I know I'm going to like this?
Yeah.
How do I know, you know, I change things up all the time.
Yeah.
But let's
Yeah.
let's just start at the beginning because I didn't want to go past, skip straight to RN and not know what it's
Yes.
like at every level. I felt like if I started at the beginning, it would help me close whatever
Yeah.
gaps and
And
it'll
that's
make me
actually
a more
very
effective
wise.
nurse.
That was a very wise decision. And you probably had these conversations with your classmates, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But just yesterday, we brought in a whole new cohort of another, would you believe, 14 women coming into the class
Oh,
starting
yeah.
next Tuesday. It's always so many women come in to do this line of work. But so many of them, like you, are kind of testing the waters to see, hey, is this really what I want? Or do I have this vision, whether it's realistic or not, in my mind of what nursing is going to be? And I always say to them, like you just shared, finding out at this level if you even like healthcare, right? Because this is as hard as it's probably going to get as a CNA, right? We know that CNAs are the foundation in every hospital, long-term care, memory care, skilled nursing, home health. We know that CNAs do all the back-breaking and really hard work. So if you don't like this, then maybe this is a good guide. Maybe I don't want to do nursing, or maybe I do, right? Maybe you might find this to be super, super easy. So now let's talk about that. So you obviously enrolled in our course. How did you find out about our course? How did you end up coming to our school? I guess in essence is the question I'm asking.
So I did extensive background, extensive research. Um, I believe one of the LPN schools sent me a list of CNA schools, and that was, of course, after just me researching. But I ended up seeing you guys on the online on the internet, and when I saw you guys online on the internet, of course, with being a mom, being a wife, children, and at the time I was working full time, I was like, I want to be able to do what I need to do for me, but
Yep.
I don't want to. I want to make sure I do this properly as far as the schedule go. And
Yes.
so when I saw you guys had hybrid classes, I was sold. I said, this is the schedule I need.
Yeah.
This is the course I need. This is the school I want to go to. It's near me, and everything just the financial aspect and everything just worked out so well for me. And I was like, I'm going here, and you guys made that easy for me to do.
Fantastic. Now, I don't remember because obviously we have a lot of students that come in at each class. Did you select the Affirm, or did you come through one of the OAI programs, or did you pay privately? I don't even remember.
I actually received a scholarship called Family Legacy Foundation.
Okay.
Again, another CNA school gave me some resources, and when they gave me those resources, they said you might qualify. You said you have children.
Yeah.
Call this phone number. I called the phone number, and I am so grateful that they were able to assist me because again, that was a barrier that I had
Of,
that was knocked
of
down.
course.
They sent payment. They were, I sent over what I needed to, and it was such an easy process, and I really appreciate that assistance.
Yeah. So that was with a company you said called Family Legacy.
Yes, it's based out of Chicago, and it was from Family Legacy Foundation, so it can be looked online, and so it's a good resource to have, and I'm so grateful that I had it.
Yeah, no, well, we'll put that later for sure in the show notes because I can be honest with you. I'd say we get more people apply that don't come through than people that apply that do. And like you just said, the barrier to entry is that they don't have the money. So we have to do a better job of finding people like you that have the passion, that have the heart, that are authentic, that are genuine, that are meant to be a care provider, whether it's a nurse or a CNA, and we need to help you find ways to get into school. So that's actually a great resource, and I am going to look that up. And that's the purpose of Neosha. When I said to you, will you come on the podcast? And so many people shy away. They're like, oh no, I don't want to do it. I don't want to be on camera. I'm like, you have so many resources to share with other people like you, the same as I have resources to share with you and other people, and that's how we all get along. We help each other, right? We share these
Yes,
connections, and that's really
exactly.
what it's all about. All right,
It is.
so tell us how, well, tell me, since you were doing the hybrid program, because not a lot of people are educated enough to actually understand what a hybrid program is. Many people think hybrid means you push a button, you go in, you learn by yourself, and there's no teachers around and there's no students around and they don't have to show up in person. People actually think that's what that means. And it's nothing like that at all. So tell us, what were your expectations before you'll say you called us to find out what it's all about? What did you think it was going to be like?
So, as I mentioned, I did achieve my associate's degree online. and I was in process to do my bachelor's degree online. So I'm very familiar with hybrid as well as online. And so what I expected was just what I thought. Hybrid means in class, online, and then you might have to go in. My concern was how many times do I physically have to be there?
Yeah.
I can make the time from home, but how many days a week do I physically have to be there so that I can make it work for my
Yeah.
family and around our
Of
schedule?
course, cooking dinner, making lunches, doing the laundry, all that has to happen as well as mummy studying, right?
Exactly.
So when you started the class, Neosha, what was your first impression? We'll say first night or first week. What did you think?
Oh my goodness. When I started the class, I was so excited. Deb was great. Like she was one of the best instructors as it relates to the actual class.
Yeah,
Of course our clinical instructor Didi was great as well. But I felt like this is where I need to be. I love that she had the camera. I love that she was engaging. I love that I had time to answer questions. It wasn't fast paced. It
yeah,
was enough where I didn't feel like I want to quit after the
yeah.
first day. So it kept me coming back.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's a beautiful thing to hear. And, I'm so happy that your experience online was good because it's actually very hard for instructors to teach online in the sense that many students, it's hard to engage them through the camera. And um, sadly, we always blame everything on COVID, but because of COVID, there are a lot of young learners who just sit there and don't engage, and that's because they lost those communication skills, I personally believe, during that period of COVID, and they just don't know how to engage. I think COVID has really impacted that part from our young people. So I'm glad to hear that. Do you think, Neosha, because you're a mature student, that and the fact that you have done so many online stuff before previously in courses, do you think it just came naturally to you, or do you think genuinely the teacher was just really good about pulling people out of their comfort zone through the computer and getting them to answer questions and to get involved?
So both. Uh, the fact that I was comfortable helped me on this journey. The fact that Deb had a teaching style
Yeah,
that would, like you said, keep us engaged. And she not only did she study for herself, she studied us as students.
yeah,
And she was more so a facilitator than a teacher. So
yeah,
she helped get us along the way. She wasn't here
yeah.
like, okay, do this, do that, do that. No, she encouraged us and
Sure.
she had our wheels turning and made us want to ask questions.
Good.
So it was both.
Good. Yeah. So yeah, a bit of both. Absolutely a bit of both. And you were saying there, that you didn't want to quit. I can tell you that normally people, by the time they get to medical terminology, they're like, "This is too hard." That's when most people usually dip and say, "Okay, I think I'm in the wrong place," but they just get nervous. Did you find any particular part of the curriculum challenged you? And if so, what was that week? Do you remember, or those chapters?
I was challenged when I didn't read the chapters before class. So when
Okay.
I didn't do my part, that's when I wasn't as engaged. As long as I stayed on top of, we had the syllabus and I knew, okay, we're going to be doing this and this and this
Yeah.
next, I was good.
Yeah.
It was a time where I was like, we're going to read this tomorrow in class. I don't have to look over this, and I did. And I felt the fact, I felt it. I shouldn't have done that
Yeah.
because what happened is I was less engaged. That's a week that I didn't get as good on my quiz. And so when I didn't do my part, that's the only time it didn't work.
Yeah. And I'm really glad that you said that again, Yosha, because there's a big There's a lot of misinformation out there, right? And we get a lot of students who think that this is going to be so easy. I don't need to study. I just need to show up, listen to the lesson, do the test. I'm going to breeze through it. And there is nothing further from the truth. And that's from coming from you who's done pharmacy tech and you've done your BA and you've done all these other things. So can you share with students who might watch this podcast, in all reality, how much study do you think is necessary to be successful with this program? Like you said, you shared that you read the chapters before class, and on the weeks that you didn't do as well. So what would you say would be a good an approximation to give students that are coming into school, knowing that they're going to be at class 4 nights a week and their clinicals at the weekend? How much time do you think would be a good recommendation to study?
So for myself, I studied more because I felt like I needed to,
Yeah,
because I wanted to first, of course, it's a term called clear the word, to make sure that the word, I understood it. And
yeah,
so I would read the definitions, and then I would read the chapters, and then I'll answer the questions. Some
yeah,
people don't have to do as much as I did. But I would say, as long as you read those chapters prior to class, you will
yeah,
be okay, because you
yeah,
can absorb the information. So if you
yeah,
gave yourself at least an hour to read those two chapters, then you should be okay, because it is a fast paced class. And so
yes,
you want her to be, the instructors to be going through the information in class, and you not even, if, especially if this is your first time being
yeah,
exposed to the information. I would just suggest, however long it takes you in particular to read those chapters prior to, please read those chapters prior to, or
yeah.
you may fall behind. So I would
And
say an hour.
just when you say read them beforehand, so you were prepared coming into class, what happens when you did your classwork and you were online? Did you then kind of review everything that you did the previous night in addition to preparing for the next night?
So yeah, I was I was a stiffler. I'm sorry. I think others may not have to do as much as I did, but because my learning style is the learning style, it's a little bit of both, where you can
Yeah,
read. Some people can read things and grasp it, but sometimes I have to do them.
yeah,
So if we went over some things in class, or if we had a quiz, I found myself reading over the quiz again and
yeah,
reviewing the quiz again so that it can sink in for me. But again, someone with a better memory, they
yeah,
maybe a younger person, and I don't like, want to use age, but I know sometimes younger people can absorb information and multitask and do a lot of other things. But for myself, I wanted to not miss anything, and that's why I was, as excessive as I was.
yeah. And I don't think it's an age thing. I think, to be totally transparent and really vulnerable here, I learned very different from all the other people in my class as well. But I don't know that my teachers understood how I learned. And because I didn't
Exactly.
learn like everybody else, I was categorized as not being good at school. When in actual fact, I actually think I could have been very good at school had I been led into how I learn. And it sounds very similar to you. I can't just read a chapter and say, oh, yeah, I got it. I have to read that chapter about 3 times. Then I have to take notes, read my notes, and then go back to the chapter. So it might take me longer. So I really appreciate you saying that. I don't think that's an age thing. And today, for me, visuals, I can see a picture and I can remember things and I can associate a word with that picture. And actually, that's what I use in all the CEs and presentations that I give. I do not overload the brains of the people that attend my CEs with massive PowerPoints with all this information. I try to give them less information, but I try to give them visuals that they can relate the information that I'm speaking, because that's how I learn. And to be honest with you, people love it. They love it.
It's a good
So
teaching style.
yes, Yes, and that's how I learned. And it turns out that, there's lots of people I think learned the same way as me and probably didn't recognize that either. So that's how I teach now. And that's how we also can recognize in the schools sometimes where students are struggling. And sometimes, Neosha, again, I think, when we're a little bit more mature at our age and at your age, you don't feel so bad at saying, I don't understand. Can you explain that? But again, a lot of the younger students that come in, I don't know if it's they're afraid that they won't be liked or they're afraid that people will think that they're not smart. They just don't speak up when they don't understand instead of stopping somebody right there and saying, I'm sorry, can you break that down for me a little bit more because I'm not grasping it, right?
Yeah, you gain more confidence as you get older. It could be various reasons why they just don't speak up, but I
Yeah.
always say, hey, if you have a question, speak up.
Absolutely. Now, you said Nurse Dee Dee. You said everybody loves Nurse Dee Dee. She gives absolutely fantastic clinical rotations. How did you feel walking into clinicals on the first day? I bet you were super nervous.
I had a bunch of different mixed feelings about it. My first thought was, this is it. It is happening. And so I was
Yeah.
excited. I was excited about it. I couldn't wait to dig in and learn some things.
Good, good. And Dee Dee, Nurse Dee Dee is full of life, so I'm sure you really, really enjoyed her. Now, when you said, "Oh boy, this is happening," this is where the rubber meets the road, right? Everything that you've learned in the book is now going to come to action. You got to put the two together, right? How was
That
working with real clients similar um, to, or was it not similar to what you learned in the book?
so actually being there with another person, a resident, you're in their presence now. And I had so many different things going through my head, like, don't say something that's gonna, don't say something, don't make them feel, I was really
Yeah,
concerned about the resident at the time. And so I was trying to do everything by the book, but
yeah.
it's not the same. It's not the same when you're there. You can do it by the book,
Right.
but you'll fall into your
You
natural
find your
patterns of
stride, you
things.
find your style,
Exactly.
just like teacher styles. You take the information that you learned, and what I find is that students are so fixated on the steps that then they forget to talk to the person, or it's like they're dealing with an atomic bomb or something that they forget to conversate with the person, right? Is that kind of
Yeah,
how you felt?
it was the other way around for me. So because this is a person, and how I don't know why, I just always had, like, when I dealt with the elderly, there's always been like a special place, especially if it's a elderly person that's just like
Yeah,
so sweet.
yeah.
And so I found myself like talking to them, even the ones that
Just
were nervous.
gravitated towards. Now
I
that is a
saw some of this.
maturity thing. That is a maturity thing. Yeah, that you weren't
Yeah.
afraid to talk to them, and I love that about you. Naosha, would you say the skills that you learned in the lab area and all the practical stuff that you did that prepare you for, we say, that very first day where you felt, oh, I can do this, I can jump in here?
Yes, everything that I learned in labs, as well as any skills that I read about, it it helped me. But as I mentioned, when I was there, I was, again, like you said, Ashley, I was trying to remember, like, oh, this is the step, or this is what you do. But then
Yeah,
I found myself putting the resident in a difficult situation because I'm trying to do it perfect, and here you have this resident that's turning, and it's like,
yeah.
just just go with the flow, and that's when I got better at it.
That is, so important to remember because you do have the knowledge, finding your style and just doing it so that it's safe. But I think you said it there best when you said you're trying to do it perfect. there is no perfect situations, and that's kind of what I don't like about a lot of the videos where we train people how to use a Hoyer lift, because they're actors that are in that Hoyer lift. They are actors that are pretending to be CNAs, and they're not real world situations. So that's why we put each other in the Hoyer lift. Students get into the Hoyer lift, students get into the bed, because we want you as students to say, oh, hey, I don't like this. Well, guess what? The person you're taking care of doesn't like where they're at right now either. So, how do we make them feel more comfortable and confident with us? And the only way we've found, anyway, to do that is by having the students get into the bed and receive that care. So, out of the clinicals, and of course we know because of HIPAA we can't mention any names, but was there anything in your clinical rotation and experience that really stuck with you that you'd like to share with us?
I had two. The first one was during feeding time. I believe it was during lunch. I sat with a resident, and oh, she told me all about her life. She told me how she was a dancer, and she told me about how she would do all of these things with her life, and she kept mentioning how she had a great life. And I also saw like she missed that.
Yeah,
And in one, it was bittersweet because
yeah,
in one sense, you know, being there with her and not having family there with her, but it just kind of stuck with me because
yeah,
it's like now I saw like she felt like she could wish she could still do a lot of the physical things that she's not
yeah,
able to do. And then there
yes.
was another one I had, and I remember her name. So I actually remember both of their names. I'm not going to
Okay.
say it. And so the other resident was, we were caring for her and we were assisting her with the bathroom. And as she was done, she just kept thanking us. And it was genuine. And then she watched us and as we dealt with her. And at the very end, she said, I was a nurse. And she told me all about her time as a nurse.
Wow.
But I thought about how that may have done so many different things for her to reflect on and like
Yeah,
just
yeah.
taking care of people herself. So those two uh,
I think
residents,
those two examples, even just from you relating those stories to me, I think, wow, I wish we could slow down to speed up, because time is the most precious gift that we can give our seniors. And yet we're always rushing, 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 rushing to get the task done, rushing to go to the next patient, rushing to go to the next job. If we just give people the time, and obviously you did, and this lady was very, very grateful. And then I think with the second lady, because you were CNAs assisting at the time and not full-fledged certified CNAs, we did have more time to be able to spend with them. And I mean, just even think about that. Well, it's a beautiful thing that she thanked you, but how sad is that somebody is thanking you for assisting them in the bathroom? I mean, I think that as CNAs, we really need to see people, and I said this, you might have heard me, and if not, I'll say it again, that we see people at their most vulnerable. And it's not necessarily the task that we perform, it's seeing them as another human being. That eye contact and that ability to just listen, right? And then she shared with you that she was a nurse. I mean, such vulnerability and such openness. But thankfully, you gave her that grace of time, because maybe other people don't, right?
exactly.
So thank you for sharing that. And I know we're going to have you on another podcast next week. So we can't wait to hear about how the exam went and all that other great stuff. So I want to thank you so much for coming on the show today. And I'm going to give you one last opportunity as a woman, a mature woman, in her early 40s, that has 8 children, that was able to balance it all and come back to school. What would be your tip to those out there that are maybe in the same situation as you were, that are probably thinking right now, no, I can't do this. I don't have time. I wouldn't be able. I can't manage it. What would you say to those women?
So I would just say whether it's women or men, I would not have been able to do this without the support of my husband, without my children like egging me on and just smiling every time they saw the test, or not, they saw me reading and they're like, oh, okay, mommy's reading. Have a good support system. It doesn't have to be your husband, it doesn't have to be your children. If you know a few people, have someone in your corner that will assist you, to just give you a kind smile or give you that push. I would not have been able to do just this, and I don't want to call it small, but this first step
Yeah.
without that. You could do it. I mean, like I always say, people in our lives are examples of what to do and what not to do. You just, if you saw people around you, what not to do, I hope I can be an example of what to do. And if you have this on your mind and you have this on your heart, the
Uh-huh.
door, just knock, those doors will open for you and they will continue to open for you. And it's a
Oh,
great
what
journey to be
an
on.
amazing piece of advice. What an amazing piece to leave with. So thank you. We left on a positive note and we talked about that when we started out, right?
Yes.
Be positive, keep smiling, and things will happen. And as you said, doors of opportunities will open when you surround yourself by the right people. Neosha, thank you so much for coming on. I really enjoyed our conversation today, and we can't wait to celebrate with you when you get your results of your exam. So, talk to you soon, and thank you so much for everything.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored. And as always, enjoy the rest of your day.
You too. Bye bye.
Bye.
That's a wrap for today's episode of Let's Talk Everything CNA. Thanks for joining us. And remember, we're here to cut through the noise. No fluff, just the facts and information you need. If you found value in today's podcast, then please subscribe and share with fellow CNAs or caregivers inspired to become CNAs. Stay tuned for more episodes. Until next time, keep your head down, stay focused, and most importantly, stay informed.